Kayaknya anu nih.
Halo.
Iya, sehat Bu?
Halo Bu Nurul.
It's me, and I'm just trying to add backdrop.
Is it my voice?
No, I've just come back on to see if I can add the backdrop to my just backdrop to my thing. Yeah, I can add. Hello, Suleja. Sorry. Oh, good, thank you. All right, I'm just going to try to.
Ibu Nida, may you please to check your microphone? Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? We will immediately start the opening ceremony, so please turn off your microphone when you are not speaking. Distinguished guest participants, ladies and gentlemen, preceding the opening ceremony, we would like to invite everyone to listen the national anthem of the Republic of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
The Honorable, the Vice Rector of Academic and Institutional Affairs UIN Antasari Banjarmasin, the Honorable, the Dean of the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teacher Training, the Honorable Vice Deans and the lecturers of the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teacher Training, the Honorable Speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, greeting from Banjarmasin, Indonesia. Welcome to the opening ceremony of International Webinar, Education in Diverse Contexts, Practices and Challenges, organized by the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teacher Training, UIN Antasari, Banjarmasin. On behalf of the organizing committee, we extend our greatest appreciation for your presence today, Thursday, 19th of October 2022, through Zoom meeting and live in YouTube channel of UIN Antasari. Ladies and gentlemen, the first agenda is the report from the chief of the committee that will be delivered by the Vice Dean of Academic and Institutional Affairs, Bapak Dr. Ahmad Muradi, M.Pd.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. Your Excellency, Vice Rector of Academic and Institutional Affairs, Your Excellency, Dean of the Tarbiyah and Teacher Training Faculty, the great speakers who have come with us, Professor Susan Edgar, Head of School, School of Education, the University of Newcastle, Australia, Mrs. Eman Alshehri, lecturer at Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University, Saudi Arabia, Dr. Haji Hamdan M.Pd, Dean of the Tarbiyah and Teacher Training Faculty. Thanks you very much for all you for being the speakers for this webinar. The heads and secretaries of study programs of Tarbiyah and Teacher Training Faculty, professors, lecturers, and students in the Tarbiyah and Teacher Training Faculty, invited guests, organizing committee for this international webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thanks to Allah for His mercy and blessing and allowing us to be able to conduct this international webinar. Salawat and greetings to the Prophet Muhammad SAW, to his family, friends, and followers until the end of time. As we know that education is life, it is not surprising that education has dynamic and problems. They are never finished like human life, which continues to develop and adapt to the times. Ladies and gentlemen, the education process is not simple. Education does not only include the process of transferring knowledge from teacher to student, but it is a process and form character and develops human potential on an ongoing basis. In addition, the problem of the offline to online learning process, the lack of the desired educational goals, the low literacy skills of our students. Through this international webinar, we have to get enlightenment about how are the practice and challenges of education and realizing the true goals of education. Therefore, we invite experts in the field of education, which are Professor Susan Edgar from Australia, Mrs. Eman Alshehri from Saudi Arabia, and Dr. Hamdan from Indonesia. Once again, thank you very much for your willingness to be the speakers. Hopefully, this webinar will be useful for all of us. As chairman of the committee, I would like to thank Dean of the Tarbiyah and Teacher Training Faculty, faculty leaders, head of administration and committee. In the end of this report, We respectfully ask the Vice Rector for Academic and Institutional Affairs, Dr. Hajjah Nida Mufida M.Pd, to give a speech and officially open this webinar. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah, waridha wal inayah, wallahu muwafiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Bapak Ahmad Muradi. The next agenda, we kindly invite the Vice Rector of Academic and Institutional Affairs for delivering speech and officially open this international webinar. Please welcome Ibu Dr. Hajjah Nida Mufida, M.Pd.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina Maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Honorable all of these participants, mainly for very greatly honor for us to have speakers from street speakers, Professor Susan Ledger, and then also Mrs. Eman Alshehri, and then also Dr. Hamdan, and then of course mainly from our Win Antasari Banjarmasin. We have to appreciate very great for all of organizing committee, and then also mainly for the Dean of Tarbiyah faculty, and then also Vice Deans, all of the major of English department, and then also all of participants here. Thank you very much. This is a webinar. And then I have to say thank you very much for all of Professor Susan Ledger from Newcastle, Australia, and then also for Mrs. Eman Alshehri from lecturer at the Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University, Saudi Arabia, and then also our great dean, Bapak Dr. Hamdan M.Pd as the Dean of Tarbiyah and Teacher Training Faculty of Win Antasari Banjarmasin. And then also thank you for moderator Ibu Nur Maulidia. Hello Ibu Nur Maulidia, you are right now in the Newcastle, Australia. Okay, the or the term of this. This is actually really very good. Education must improve our education, because education in our student or for our children, this is actually the foundation of successful society. And then of course we have to continue for our striking differences in the quality of education. How can we improve our education to help our children thrive? And then of course later on we will discuss this further about this one with our really very great speakers from Professor Susan Ledger, and then continued by Mrs. Eman Alshehri, and then also our Dean Dr. Hamdan. And then of course as our society in Indonesia, we have to, or we can say, we must seek to minimize adversity and ensure that our children have this, while also we have to embracing individual differences. Indeed, individual differences are one of the strengths of humanity, and then also as a key reason for the incredible advancement that have taken place in society throughout human history. And then of course, education systems strive to provide students with equitable, individualized inputs and environment. We must also be aware that all of us should embrace individual differences in our children. And later on, I believe that the discussion would be interesting later, and then we have to say thanks. Of course, it will be some question, maybe it will be some statement. How can we improve our students, maybe for understanding the quality education, and should be seen as principle that guides all education policies. And then also maybe later on it will be discussed further about what are the levels for change that can be used for to move thinking and practice forward. And then I believe also it can be some solution later on. If there are some barriers, what are the barriers to progress, and then how can these things be addressed? I think it is actually the topic would be really very urgent for discussing, and then I believe all the participants would be active in this international seminar. And then I have to say thank you very much for all the presenters today, and then also the Faculty of Education and Training, mainly for the Dean of the Faculty of Teacher Training, the Vice Dean, and then all of the leaders in Tarbiyah faculty, by saying Basmalah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's open this international webinar with the term education in the first context, practices and challenging. Hopefully it can be run well, and then of course we can get benefit from this international webinar, and we can implement better for our education system. Thank you very much. I close this my address remark by saying Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Ibu Nida, for the speech. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, before we come to the prominent presentations, allow me to welcome Bapak Fatullah Mundadi MA to lead us in prayer.
Ya. Syukran. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
حضرة المحترمين قبيل الدعاء هيا بنا نستفيد بسورة الفاتحة الفاتحة تبنية القبول تمام كل سول المأمول وإلى حضرة الرسول الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. آمين يا الله يا رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد صلاة تملأ خزائن الله نورا وتكون لنا وللمؤمنين فرجا وفرحا وسرورا وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اللهم ارزقنا فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين. ففهمناها سليمان وكلا آتينا حكما وعلما وسخرنا مع داود الجبال يسبحن والطير وكلا فاعلين. اللهم ارزقنا الفهم والعلم والحكمة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable speakers, participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is our privilege to welcome you to the main session of this webinar. Before I pass the microphone to the moderator, allow me to invite all the participants for taking photo together. Pada panitia yang bertugas, kami silakan untuk memandu foto bersama.
Baik, terima kasih. Untuk sesi foto, dimohonkan kepada Bapak dan Ibu yang berada di ruang Zoom agar bisa mengaktifkan kamera pada Zoom-nya. Oke. Baik, untuk yang pertama. 1, 2, 3. Baik. Yang kedua, 1, 2, 3. Oke, terima kasih.
Thank you very much for all the participants. Finally, on behalf of the organizing committee, I'm Afifah Lindasari as the Master of Ceremony, wishing you all a wonderful webinar. Thanks for your attention. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Distinguished guests and dear participants, it is the time we have been waiting for, the presentation from our prominent speakers. Allow me to welcome the moderator of this webinar, Ibu Hajah Normal Lydia MA.
Thank you very much, Ibu Afifah Lindasari, as the Master of Ceremony. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable speakers and participants, I'm honored to welcome you in the international webinar organized by the Faculty of Education and Teacher Training at Antasari State Islamic University, UIN Banjarmasin. My name is Normal Lydia, and I will be the moderator in this webinar. The general topic for today is education in diverse contexts, practices, and challenges. This topic will be presented by three prominent speakers. The first speaker, we have Professor Susan Ledger from the University of Newcastle, Australia. Hello, Professor Susan.
Morning, selamat pagi.
And the second speaker, we have Mrs. Eman Alshehri from Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University in Saudi Arabia. And the third, hello Iman. Mrs. Iman, are you?
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. And the third speaker, we have Dr. Haji Hamdan M.Pd from UIN Antasari Banjarmasin, Indonesia.
Assalamualaikum, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Before we start the presentation, allow me to inform you about our agenda for today. The first session, we have the presentation. Each speaker will present for 30 minutes. The second session is question and answer session. The participants can ask directly via Zoom or write the questions on the chat box or in YouTube chat. And then the presentation of token of appreciation and then closing. I would like to remind you as well that the link of the certificates will be shared at the end of the webinar. Now we have our first speaker. Before I invite her, I would like to read a brief biography. So the first speaker is Professor Susan Ledger. She is the Dean of Education at the University of Newcastle in Australia. Susan is an advocate for the teaching profession and committed to exploring education policies and practices relating to teaching and preparing to teach diverse students and diverse contexts. Susan has a broad experiential base in rural, remote, and international school settings and university contexts. Her recent endeavors focus on the affordance of simulation to prepare. And Susan is joining us from Brisbane. Hello, Professor Susan. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Susan.
Terima kasih, Lydia. I'm just trying to share, make sure that I can share. Can you see my page?
Yes, we can see.
I'll put it in. Okay, selamat pagi semuanya. Nama saya Ibu Su Ledger. Saya berasal dari Australia Barat, tetapi sekarang saya tinggal di Australia Timur di University Newcastle. 20 tahun yang lalu saya tinggal di Malang dan belajar di what was it? IKIP. And then itu saya berasal di West Papua selama tiga tahun. So saya punya sedikit pengalaman di Indonesia dan saya mau minta maaf atas bahasa saya tidak lancar atau so I'll revert back to into
It's very
English.
clear, Professor.
Oh, terima kasih ya, Pak. Saya mau bilang terima kasih kepada Lydia, dia mahasiswa dari University Newcastle, and thank you for giving me this pengalaman hari ini. So my talk today is about education in diverse contexts. I've taught for 30 years, and many of those have been in very different contexts. I have worked in remote Aboriginal schools in the Kimberleys. I have worked in remote mining towns in the goldfields. I've worked on Cocos Islands, which is just south of Indonesia. Cocos Islands. I've worked in England. I've worked over in West Papua. And in between time, I've worked for the Department of Education, and now I'm in university. So I come into this position with an absolute love of teaching, a love of schooling, and a love of students and education. And that's how I'll sort of start framing all of my work. So I'm talking today briefly about diverse context practices. But before I do, in Australia, we have an Indigenous population that has never been really acknowledged. So we are now acknowledging our Indigenous population, and I'd like to acknowledge their custodians, elders past, present, and emerging, because that's where I prepared my presentation today. And I want to acknowledge the Pambalang clan of the Awabakal people in Newcastle. But I also want to extend that acknowledgement to the homelands of all the people who join us here today. Many of you are from many of the different islands throughout the Indonesian archipelago, and many of you are probably linked to, communities that have been there for a very long time. So I just want to acknowledge that we are who we are because of who our parents and our grandparents had been. My my research experience covers emerging technologies. I'm an old lady, but I've loved technologies. And over the last 10 years, I've brought in simulation to help prepare teachers to become better teachers. It's called Teach Live, or it's called SimTeach, but it's all about before we send students to schools, we prepare them using technology, and they have to teach a class of avatars before, and we have to make sure that they can teach well before we send them to schools. I've also done a lot of work on language and literacy and second language learning. So my writing and my publications are across all of these fields. I've been in teacher education a long time, so a lot of my work is on professional experience and placements and linking universities to schools. Much of my work is on diverse learners. Well, can you see those pictures? Can you see this? Can you see me moving that around? Oh, I apologize. I should have that reduced. Oops. I'm sorry about that. And diverse school contexts. As I said, I've worked in remote Aboriginal schools. I've worked in multicultural schools. I've worked in private schools. I've worked in state schools. I've worked in a whole range. So all of my experience helps me be a really strong advocate for the teaching profession. And I want to make a difference. And I want to make a difference to policies and practices. So this morning, I'm presenting on the challenges impacting in education in diverse contexts in Indonesia and Australia, because I want to find out what we have in common, because if we have things in common, we can help each other, and what's causing these challenges. And I want to see how we can actually address those issues and how they can be mitigated. This is how I'm going to run through it, just looking briefly at diverse contexts, commenting on the metrocentric and middle class policies that impact our rural education, inclusive education, special education. Many of the people who make decisions about education and schooling and teaching don't live in rural and remote. They don't have special needs children. They don't have, they're not poor. They're not without anything. So many of our policies are made by metrocentric middle class people, and they impact all of the majority of other people. And that's a problem at the moment, because we don't understand some of our students and some of our schools and some of the conditions that they have to work within. So I just think we need to look at that bit broader. So I'm looking at, so the research questions I'm going to address today are current challenges and practices in both Indonesia and Australia. What are the commonalities and what are some solutions? And I think if I can wrap those three things up, that should be good. When we talk diverse contexts and practices, we talk about geographic location, and many of you might work in urban centres, rural, regional and remote. And in Indonesia, your country is so spread out and so remote that, you know, I think you've done an amazing job when you united the country in the 60s with language. You know, you're using Bahasa Indonesian as a language to unite the archipelago. It was very clever. But, you know, you still have to recognise there's lots and lots of differences out there. So there's geographic diversity. There's socioeconomic diversity, and much of that we refer to as the postcode impact. If you live in a wealthy suburb, you're going to typically have more things. Your social capital will be greater, etc. Then there's the curriculum diversity, and we have local schools, national schools. Now, I know in Indonesia you don't have international, but you have, because they changed the name a few years ago, but you have other organisations coming in with different international curriculums. I've also worked in an international baccalaureate school. You've got religious schools, and you've got ability schools, you know, select schools. And then the last piece, which we often miss, is the student diversity. So we have geographic diversity, socioeconomic diversity, curriculum diversity, but more importantly, we have student diversity, and that's what we need to look at. In Indonesia and Australia at the moment, the biggest challenge for us, and it's a global issue, are teacher shortages. In Australia, look at our tiny little numbers compared to Indonesia, we are 10 times smaller in number than Indonesia. But we have a massive shortage of teachers. Many of our schools at the moment are not fully staffed, and that's an issue. And I know in Indonesia that you have similar issues. You've got teacher shortages, your teachers are the status of your teachers and the burden on teachers is huge. You've got teacher shortages in science and maths and English, technology, etc., and the same as us. Rural and remote teacher shortage. Some of our rural and remote schools don't have teachers, and sometimes we put them in front of a TV. We have inequality due to access technologies. You know, the gap between technologies is actually widening, not tightening, but I think Indonesia's done a better job than that than Australia, and I'll talk to that later. Your professional learning, there's only certain people get professional learning. The gender imbalance in the profession, and it's the same as Australia, is that predominantly our primary school teachers in Australia are females. Secondary teachers about 50-50. Early childhood, mainly female. Primary, predominantly female. Secondary, female and male. But many of our leaderships are male, not female. Many of our principals are male. And so there's some commonalities in that gender equity and gender imbalance. There's also an equity and diversity between school types, and we've talked about that, private schools, you know, funded schools, etc. There's in Indonesia, low level of national literacy and numeracy, and I don't think you do so well in the ASEAN or whatever. I've got some data, but, you know, over the last 5 years, Indonesia's just rising up, and I think that you should give yourself a clap on the back for that. You're doing a wonderful job. So those same things that are challenges in Indonesia, if you go and look at the Australian list, it's also a challenge. Some of the differences though are our early childhood shortages. We have high turnover, and we have people making money out of early childhood rather than being a state initiative, and that concerns me. I think our government should provide early childhood, primary and secondary equally. The other difference, all those others are the same, but we have low levels of second language learners. We have 80% of our teachers in Australia are monolingual and monocultural. Yet 65% of our students are multilingual and multicultural. So we're trying to change that. So in teacher education, we're trying to make sure that everyone has a second language. One of the other things that's an issue I'm not sure in Indonesian, you'll be able to help me, is that, have you got the translation on? Are you doing the scripting at the bottom, Lydia, so people can read it in English? Some people find it easier to read it in English rather than just hear it. That's an easy one if you can just put the transcription down the bottom. One of the issues that's also one of the challenges is behaviour management in our schools and violence against teachers and principals. And I'd love to hear if that's similar in Indonesia. I've tried to do a little snapshot of Indonesia and I love your input. This is a fascinating, you have a fascinating country, so diverse, so spread out, and you should celebrate that. And I think you do that quite well. I'm not sure how much we celebrate it though within our education system, same as us. So this is just from the Human Development Index showing where there's high population, low, and where there's high living standards. So you can see good living standards around your main centres here. And that's the postcode, in what we refer to as a postcode. Where you live often determines the quality of education that you get. So if I'm a tiny little remote island up here, I may not be given the opportunity as someone who's in a city school here. And that's why I'm always saying when we look at policies, we have to look at this person out here and this school out here in the same way we look at everyone else. That's our job. That was this, I thought I'd put it in because this is how sometimes, like Australia and like Indonesia and any other country, you have all these big world organizations, the OECD, the WINA, this one, trying to make snapshots of our system. And I'm not sure if it's always up to date and I'm not sure if it's always correct, but I just thought I'd put something in there to show you that everyone sort of tries to make a snapshot of us, but I think you as an Indonesian Department of Education, I think Indonesia has to put their own profile up. I have noticed that the conversation is now coming to Indonesia and has been for a while, and I think it's one of the best conversations that you can have. Put in, I would encourage all academics, if there are issues, then write a little 800-word paper and put it into the conversation, because government reads it, business people read it, and then it will actually get some traction. So conversations are really good. This is where we found out there's a billion. Sorry. And as I said before, one of the challenges, you've got the same challenge as us, that you are short of teachers, and so is Indonesia, so is Australia. So we've got similar problems. You've also seen a massive change in how to address diversity and inclusion. And this document from the World Bank is a really useful, it's up to date, and I think it captures what you want to do in this space, even though it's a relatively new phenomenon. You have so much opportunity in Indonesia. You've got the third largest population in the world under 25. So if you can have some, future focused ideas, you could change the world, particularly with technology or innovation, etc. And really excited about that. However, you also have low literacy rates. 55% of Indonesians who actually complete school are functionally illiterate. I mean, Australia had low, I think we've got 10%. Tertiary attainment levels, so we've only got 9% of your population are doing Bachelor of Educations. And then when you do want to go out and do further study, like Lydia and many of the postgraduates here, you come to Australia, which we're delighted about because we're your closest neighbours and we want to be stronger partners with you, US and Malaysia. What I've noticed and seen within Indonesia, that you have, like in the 1960s, when you brought the language, used language to unite the nation, now that you've got teacher shortages and challenges, you're using technology to unite the nation. I think that's very clever. You've got your champion teachers, your champion schools. The Ministry of Education has given the learning and sharing platform for teachers. It's giving you all a national Google account. And there's a whole heap of resources that are available for all teachers from one end of the archipelago to the other. This can only be good for your profession. Teachers are under a lot of burden. We've just had a report, the Grattan Institute, to say that lesson planning is a lottery. everyone's doing all these different lesson plans and none of them are linked or of high quality, etc. We need to have a bit more commonalities, so a good base, and then people can add their creativity around it. So I really like what you've done in Indonesia on this in this space. In Australia, this is our country, not as, it's probably bigger in size, but not as spread out as you, but our population is very spread out. If you look at the major cities, and I was originally from Perth, I'm now way over here in Newcastle, just above Sydney, the majority of our population live by the coast. This whole area here is very remote, but we have schools out there. We have schools out in Belgo and Warburton. I've worked up here in this space here in between Kununurra and Broome. I've worked out here over near Warburton. My sister lives in Geraldton. You know, I grew up, had some time in Bunbury. It's a big, big country, and they've got the same issues as what you have. Our remote areas, 13% internet capacity. So how do you get technologies to those centres when we know there's no technology there? So this is why our policymakers actually have to make sense of and provide access, because it's no good having all these wonderful technology things if we've got all of these places that can't access it. So I think with Elon Musk's new Starlight thing, I think that's the satellite one is actually trying to get, we might have to access that and get to more places. Our Australian education system, if you're not aware, and this is from DFAT, the Foreign Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, this is what we have. We have primary school, secondary school, senior secondary school, and tertiary. All of this is compulsory. Oh, sorry. All of our students have to go to senior secondary school unless they get an apprenticeship. We have what they call the Australian Qualifications Framework. I think you have a similar thing now that has 10 levels. So every certificate all the way to a PhD is on that framework. So you can get certificate 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, your bachelor's, your diplomas, your bachelor's, your postgrads, your PhDs. So we have a very structured approach to how that goes. What we've done in Australia to bring the nation together in the same way you've brought the nation together with technologies, we have the AITSL, Australian Teaching and Leadership Group, and they have, that group has over the last decade given us professional standards for teachers, professional standards for principals, and highly accomplished teachers. A bit like your champion teachers, we have highly accomplished teachers. And they also offer a lot of resources. What Australia's done, like the rest of the world, is also very interested in research. And this link here takes us to Evidence for Learning, which is come out, anyone can sign up, all these things are free. So what it looks at is all of the resources. They have a toolkit and they say, whatever teaching you do, what's the cost of it? What evidence research is available and how much impact will it have? So here's some things. Let's pick one. So collaborative learning. If I want to put collaborative learning into a classroom, I can see here that the cost is not very expensive. I can see the evidence is quite good. There's some research out there. And if I use, if I use collaborative learning approaches in my classroom effectively and follow the research thing, I can improve my student outcomes by 5 months out of a year. So they've gone through and had a look at all of the things that impact our students in schools. Here's another one, feedback. Very high impact for load-based evidence. Providing feedback is cheap. There's a heck of a lot of research on it, and they're saying it will impact students by a half of a year. So if I've got a classroom for 12 months and I focus on feedback and doing that sort of discussion, sustained, talk with them, then I know I'm going to actually get some benefit. I can actually go into this area and look at what research is out there on that particular topic. and I'll get some findings. So this, I know that if I'm going to do this, the research is there, there's some key points, how it talks about the effectiveness of it, and it'll give me a whole heap of activities and researches to go for, okay? So it's a really good website. But then it will also further down, sorry for scrolling so quickly, it will tell you how many, they've looked at 155 research articles about feedback. They've collated it and they've looked at all the evidence of strength. So they're saying the evidence strength is very high on this. And then you can actually go down to, you can actually go and look at all of those 155 articles. They'll have them listed there for you. Okay. It's a really, really good website. So that's this one here, Evidence for Learning. We also at a higher level have the Australian Educational Research Organisation that is now producing some good research for schools. So we don't have to go, if you've got areas of interest for your research, go to these websites, Evidence for Learning, Australian Educational Research Organisation, and AITSL. So you don't start from scratch. Anything that you're thinking about teaching or researching, someone else has already thought about it. You just have to build on that and make it different to suit your context. Oh, sorry. Why is that not going? So what are the commonalities? I think we've said that before. There's an imbalance in the geographic distribution of teachers. So given all of that context that I've talked about, Indonesia, Australia, all these issues, there's challenges to do with geography, there's challenges to do with school types, students, etc. There's an imbalance in geography, there's inequality in schooling options, there's a surplus in Indonesia, you've got a whole surplus group of teachers, but you've also got shortages of teachers, and those shortages are the same as ours. You've got segmentation of the system. You have teacher preparation, teacher training, and leadership, and sometimes they don't even link, and that's not good. You have lots of casual teachers, so do we. You have lots of temporary teachers, so do we. You have lots of teachers who are teaching that aren't qualified, so do we. So, and we're all looking at ways to overcome that. We also privilege content. We privilege maths and science over some other curriculum areas. We know PISA certainly privileges it. And we actually think, oh, if we don't test it, then it's not worthy to teach. But I'm arguing that the affective domain of a child, all those other bits, are equally as important. And I think if we focused more on the other bits, you'd actually get children doing better in the content. And in that same regard, I think we forget about the whole child or the whole teacher or the whole principal and their well-being, their creativity and their resilience. We worry too much about standards. We worry too much about compliance and we forget that these are people, they are humans, and we have to do that, look at that first. What's happened in Australia and Indonesia and global, and I'm not sure if it's because we can measure it better or whether it's an environmental thing or nature or nurture, whatever it is, but we do have an increased number of students with specific needs and we need to impact them. We need to cater for that. And as I said before, we have an increased violence, behaviour and disrespect for the profession, which is often done and charged by the media. I'm sort of saying technology is great, but it's not the silver bullet, and it's certainly not going to cater for those that don't have access. So it has ability to unite like you have done in Indonesia, but it has to always come down to what's best for the students and what can they access. So how do we cater for this absolute diversity of schools, diversity of teachers and diversity of students? How do we cater for that? Well, one, I think we have to respect teachers, respect our communities. We have to celebrate and cater for the diversity that we have. I used to have people talking about West Papuan teachers as if they were, different or backward or not as clever. It's a bit like when you talk to someone who is using English as a second language, and because their language isn't good in their second language, you judge them cognitively and think, oh, they're not bright. and which is not an appropriate thing. I mean, anyone that learns the second language and can do 2 languages, 3 languages more, it's a gift. So I think we need to respect, celebrate, and cater for diversity. So there's only 3 things that I'm saying that we could do to address these challenges. One is to do that. And the best way of doing that in schools is by having a really good leader. Now, students will improve if their teacher is high quality, but schools will improve if their leaders are high quality. And to me, if you invest in your leadership, and if your leaders are inspiring, and if your leaders care, if they're relational, and they focus on the humanity in their community, your schools, your students, and your teachers will feel much better. Their well-being will be better, they'll feel cared for, and then typically their learning will improve. My second point is see the child as a whole person. Treat every domain as equal. At the moment, we only treat this, we preference this one. We preference students if they're cognitively bright, if they do well in their maths, their science. We don't, the love of reading, the love of learning, all of that sort of affective stuff we need to probably spend more time on. And we certainly, and we're seeing it in the Western world, our psychomotor skills, our physical activities have dropped off enormously. Too many of our children are sitting behind computers doing not much. They are physically unfit, which makes them mentally unfit and emotionally unfit. So when we talk about improving schools and students and teachers, we need to look at schools and teachers and students and leaders in these 3 basic domains. We know this. This is what we were taught at university. This is what we were taught when we taught teachers, but then we go out into a system that only looks at one factor. That's a problem, and that's why we're seeing problems in our schools, and we're seeing students who are disconnected, who are unfit, who don't put sport or exercise in their daily lives. And, you know, if you look at the Maslow's law, the food, shelter, sense of belonging, health and well-being, and then at the very top, you can actually get your learning done. I think this really hits home. So just go back to 3 things: respect, celebrate, and cater for diversity, and focus on leadership. 2, see the child as a whole person by looking at the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor skills. And then support the local differences. And one of the best way I've seen people supporting the local differences is place-based and project-based learning. So place-based and project-based, PBL and PBE, I think go good hand in hand. So you use your local community to learn project, and you use project-based learning, PBL, to learn about your local heritage, your culture, your landscapes, your opportunities, your experiences, and you can teach every subject by doing that. And I think it's just a little bit, it's acknowledging that all of our places are different and we can still achieve all of the things that we need to, like our literacy, numeracy, etc., but do it with something that kids are interested and the teachers are interested and the schools and communities know. It's sort of an asset-based approach. So in conclusion, I want to draw from my experience of having a lot of experience teaching everywhere, whole range of different age groups, in a whole range of different systems, in a whole range of different environments, with a whole range of different students. And I think we complicate education at the moment. We need to simplify it. We know that health and well-being of society needs good education. Schooling needs to be done differently. We are still teaching like we were teaching or we were taught 100 years ago. We all sit in our classrooms, we all look at our teachers, and we all do our work. We need to switch to project-based learning on local stuff, that PBL and PBE stuff. And I think we need decisions about education to be done by educators I'm really lucky. We've got Laureate Professor Jennifer Gore and the Quality Teaching Academy here at University of Newcastle. If you haven't had a look at, go and have a look at QT, Quality Teaching, just Google Quality Teaching. We have an academy, you can link into it, get free information from it. If your community would be interested, we're happy to share that with Indonesia. It is recognised by every state department in Australia, and yeah, it's good work. But my comment lastly is, I think, Sue Ledger, our schooling system needs to differentiate and accommodate the diversity of schools and the diversity of students to make sure that everyone, no matter where they live, that tiny little island in the archipelago, or one of the wealthiest schools in Jakarta, each of those have to have the opportunity to succeed. And each of those have to be able to be students who, when they come out of school, have learnt how to survive, and that's learnt how to survive the education system, the local system, that you can't survive if you can't read or write or do the functional literacy. So if you need to learn how to survive, how do you survive if you don't have any food for a couple of days? Just all those things. I think you need to learn how to survive. You need to learn how to discern, and many of our students, young ones, don't know how to discern between what's facts and what's not. We have to teach them to say what's good quality research, what's good quality resources. Social media has absolutely obscured they don't understand how to be discerning in their choice. And then lastly, and this will help everybody, they need to learn how to care. So if our children can survive in any context that they're given, they can learn to discern, they can discern what's good, bad, or indifferent, and they care about their neighbours, then I think our education system has done well. Unfortunately, those things and the effect of the three domains haven't been the focus of education over the last 10, 15 years. We've been too worried about competition and standards and fitting boxes and compliance and paperwork, and we've gone away from what I think is the most important thing, and that's the children and the learners, and encouraging students to want to learn, and particularly want to learn about their local environment, from their local ancestries, and then you build that local knowledge into the national, and then you build that national knowledge into the global. So have I taken too long? There's some and I'll give these PowerPoints to Lydia. I'm hoping that I haven't gone over time. Have I gone over?
No, you're perfect in time.
Great. Okay, good. I'd love to have ada pertanyaan.
So the question and answer session will be at the end, but
okay.
if you would like to, all right. Thank you very much, Professor Susan Ledger, for your valuable presentation. And so Professor Susan presented about the challenges and also the practices in education, especially in diverse contexts. What we mean by diverse contexts, because there are rural areas and also remote areas and also international areas. Okay, and she presented the challenges in Indonesia and also in Australia. And yeah, it's interesting to know that there are some commonalities between Indonesia and also Australia. And I get that point, the importance of leadership to improve the leadership of our education or the schools. Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Susan Ledger. I remind you to that the question and answer session will be at the end, after all the speakers present.
And Lydia, I've just put my PowerPoints up onto the chat if anyone wants to write them.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No problems.
Okay, now we come to the second speaker. This is Eman.
Yes, hello.
Okay. Hello.
Thank you, Noor.
All right. So before I invite Mrs. Eman to give her presentation, I'd like to read a brief profile of Eman. So Mrs. Eman Alshehri, she is a PhD candidate at the University of Newcastle, Australia. She is a lecturer since 2015 in Computer Science Department, Deanship of Preparatory Year and Supporting Studies in Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal in Saudi Arabia. Iman's research interest is about technologies and education, specifically about mobile learning, and that's what she's going to present, I believe. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Eman.
Thank you, Noor. Thank you very much. And good morning and assalamu alaikum for people in Indonesia. Good afternoon for people here with me in Australia. And welcome to all the people who are attending this valuable webinar. And please allow me to thank Professor Suzanne for sharing her knowledge and experience with us. It was great to listen to her. And also I thank all the speakers here, Dr. Hamdan also, and all the organizers of this webinar and the university, the Antasaria Islamic State University. Let me share my screen with you. Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay. Okay, as educators, we want to maximize the resources around us to help increase the students' learnings and achievements. After the COVID have hit the world, many things have changed, and there was a strong shift to online learning and digital transformation in education system. And during those times, many of us learners and educators have been using or started using their mobile devices either to consume or create knowledge. This kind of learning through these mobile devices is called mobile learning, which will be the topic that I'm speaking about in this presentation. This is the outlines that I will be speaking about. Definition of mobile learning, technologies of mobile learning, advantages and disadvantages of mobile learning, and some practices of mobile learning in education. And lastly, I'm going to have a quick overview of Saudi Arabia and some findings of my research at Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University with the use of mobile learning there. So when we are speaking about mobile learning, what is mobile learning or M-learning? It refers to the education that is delivered through these mobile technologies that is wirelessly connected to the internet. These devices could be smartphones or tablets, and also it has more than other features such as applications and interactive technologies. If we speaking about the technologies of mobile learning, you can see the diagram here, which is it was presented by a couple of authors who are well known in mobile learning. Naismith and others have presented a classification of the technologies that are used in mobile learning. They classified these technologies according to the accessibility and the mobility of the device. So our focus will be on the shaded area on the top left hand. You can see it's more personal, more portable devices, such as mobile phones, tablets, and laptops. And actually nowadays, mobile technologies it's not the only thing that is important. It's the features inside these mobile technologies, such as the camera and the location awareness, motion detection, and augmented reality. If we are looking in the advantages of mobile learning, there is a lot of advantages and rewards from the use of mobile learning. One of the most important rewards is that mobile learning can occur at any place and any time, and learning content can be accessed anywhere. So mobile learning process is not limited to one particular place. Another advantage of mobile learning is that it could increase the self-directed, self-paced learning. And this happens when the learner can learn what they need and in their own time, and according to their own schedule. Also, mobile learning could increase the learning communication. So it increased or enhanced the interaction between the students and educators, which also increased the collaborative learning. An advantage also of mobile learning is that it increased the students' motivation. Students love to use their technologies or mobile technologies for learning, and this will increase their engagement in learning, which is a positive effect. On the other hand, moving to the disadvantages of mobile learning, mobile learning could increase the isolation of the students. The dominance of the technology and the absence of physical appearance, body language, and social interaction, all of this diminish the human dimension in education and limit teachers' understanding of their students' individual differences. And this will lead to reducing the support from the teachers to the students' special or different needs. And this also interrupts the bonds between teachers and their students, and between the students and other students, which is very, very necessary to build positive attitude and beliefs, as well as aspect of social and psychological identity. Another drawback of mobile learning is that it could increase the distraction from learning. There is a lot of applications on the mobile devices, and so many notifications that appear by second. And it's really easy to get distracted from learning by checking those notifications. Another drawback is that it could increase also the academic anxiety. The responsibilities that are on the academics' shoulder when they integrate new technologies in the classroom or in the learning environment, in their education environment. It's not easy because educators are assumed to know everything, and to be honest, integrating new technologies is really hard. You have to design a special kind of curriculum, and you have to get trained and have you have to, prepare for this very well before you start integrating new technologies. And also there's another issue is that increase the academic anxiety, which is the increase of cheating and content security, which is very important. Another issue of mobile learning is that it leads to make students depend only on online resources, which sometimes is another difficulty, because students need to know think critically about the resources that they are using, and they have also to learn other real-life experiences to understand issues, and this cannot be done all the time through mobile learning. So what are the practices of mobile learning in education, and how can we implement mobile learning in our classes. One of the easiest way is through offering mobile learning materials such as text, audios, pictures, videos, and then the students can watch a video, for example, and then complete their homework and so on. A second way of using mobile learning in the education system is through the interaction during lessons. Educators can ask a question or quiz, make a quiz at the beginning of the lesson through mobile applications and get the feedback quickly in minutes. Also, it can be at the end of the lesson where educators add some quiz or some questions at the end of the lessons to check or assess the understanding of their students. A third way of practicing mobile learning is the synchronous learning. This actually happens through the immediate interaction and response between teachers or educators and learners. It could happen through the discussion forums or immediate response through other mobile applications between students and their educators. Now I'll give you an overview of Saudi Arabia and why have I chose Saudi Arabia as an example for investigating the use of mobile learning there. Actually, you can see from the picture, Saudi Arabia is divided into 13 regions. One of the biggest regions there is the Eastern Province region with the administrative city Dammam. This region actually have the biggest desert in the world, which covers around 60% of this region. And the population is growing very fast. It's the fastest of the other regions in Saudi Arabia by 12% each year. Dammam city only have 2 universities. One is Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal and the other one is called King Fahd Petroleum University, which only male university, and that's why I picked Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University as a target university to investigate the use of mobile learning there, because also it's more inclusion. Some key issues in Saudi Arabia, I'll go through it quickly regarding the vision. You know, Saudi Arabia now is becoming more oriented toward establishing knowledge-based economy regarding its 2030 vision through the development of the education system, educational innovations, learning skills, teaching approaches, and also integrating new ICT innovations into education. And there is also the National Transformation Program 2020 that have set a budget of $52 billion for the education sector only. And this also include a research development program for university with a budget of $1.5 billion. Another key issue from Saudi Arabia is the rapid growth of the demand for higher education. In the last 20 years, there is a huge amount of students that want to register in the education of university education. And from 2010 to 27, the amount of students have growth to the double. Also, another key issue from Saudi Arabia is the significant ownership and usage of smartphones among young adults in KSA, as it ranked the second highest country after China from 2014 to 2020. Also, there is a noticeable gap between gender in academic performance, as female students are benefiting more than male students when using ICT tools in learning, which is need to be investigated. And due to the geography of the region and the dramatic increase in the number of new higher education students, this makes sense to make mobile learning a priority in its education system. Here, I'm going to give an overview of some findings of my research about the level of usage, practices, attitudes, enablers, and challenges. The study was in the University of Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal at Dammam. You can see here one of the findings that I have found from my research study is that nearly 100% of the students there are using smartphones for learning, and in a variety of amount of time. Some of them spent less than 2 hours, and some of them spent then more than 5 hours. And this indicates that the smartphone use for learning at IAU is the normal trend. Also here from the findings, it appears that the two significant educational activities that most of the students do through their smartphones are checking emails and using their social network and for educational purposes, which is also have confirmed by many studies that countries in the Middle East use social networking or benefit from social networking more than other applications for learning. When investigating the mobile applications for that are used for learning, students and academics have mentioned a variety of applications, varied from social networking app to video apps to pool apps to education platforms such as Nearpod, Blackboard, and the Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University platform on their mobile devices, and also some drawing applications. However, the highest used app by academics and students at IIU was the WhatsApp. They used it for communication and sharing information. In the attitudes and in investigating the attitudes and perception of the students and academics, I found that students are more positive toward the use of smartphones for learning than their academics. The only thing both of them found was negative is that both of them feel that there is a lack of social support. And going deeply in the interviews, many of them have mentioned that the lack of policies and regulations from the university level was the main obstacle to use smartphones. And this also have influenced the usefulness negatively for the academics. So they felt that using the smartphones for learning at the university is not useful because there was no policies or regulations. Moving to the enablers, I asked the academics what was the most reason that encouraged them to use smartphones for learning, and they said so many interesting things. One of the points they mention is the digital community. So many academics have mentioned that the community is changing. There is the use of technology is like a culture now. So this has encouraged many academics to use or integrate smartphones to teach their students in the University of Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal. Another enabler is the environmental preservation, where many academics have thought going green is the best way to deal with the environment now. And the easiest way to do that is to integrate technology with the most valuable the most available technology, which is smartphones. Also, one of the enablers is that academics have noticed that using smartphones for learning with their students have improved the students' 21st century skills, such as searching, reading, discussing, the collaborative learning, the self-learning, communication with the students and educator, which is very interesting and very promising. Also, academics have noticed that learning abilities is one of the main points that have encouraged them to use smartphones for learning. They mentioned that the learning through smartphones can easily be customized to the students' needs and capabilities, which is great. As you see, this is the quote of one of them saying that students can, even shy students can participate in so many activities during when using smartphones. Now, moving to the challenges and what was the most obvious challenges for the academics. Academics have mentioned that there was so many pedagogical challenges. They mentioned the lack of an instructional pedagogy. They mentioned the incompatibility of the smartphones with the educational materials, the smartphones, you know, small size screens, small screen size, low battery, and so on. And also they mentioned the student lack of knowledge and skills, how to use it correctly for the in the education or in learning. Also the digital divide, so not all students have the skills, and there's some students who benefit more from mobile learning than others. Also, the content security was one of the issues regarding the pedagogical challenges. Another challenge was the technical challenges at Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal, where academics have mentioned the lack of features on smartphones was one of the difficulties or challenges that they face, such as low battery, you know, and low processing system and small screen size. However, these technologies are improving every year, and sometimes it's competitive to the laptops. Also, another technical issue was the infrastructural issue in some buildings where in Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University, some buildings have weak Wi-Fi connection. Another challenge was the policies, which was the most important challenge here, because all of the academics and students have agreed on this challenge. The policies, the lack of policies that have been the shortage of policies that not been set by the university was one of the biggest challenges to integrate smartphone use for learning at Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University. And I think it's very important to set the regulation such as bring your own device and maybe other regulations similar to other universities. Also, another challenge was the last challenge was the personal challenges. These personal challenges differ from academic to another, but mainly that they have suffered from the administrative workload. They have suffered from lack of workshops. They don't like to use new technologies, or they don't understand it because they are from older generations. They have some anxiety of using mobile learning according to their privacy concerns. Also, they have a lack of class time management issues. I think this is the issues that I have encountered in my research. Lastly, I can say, despite all of the challenges of smartphones implementation as a mobile learning tool in Saudi universities, the results are encouraging for the adoption of new technologies for education in line with the objectives of the strategic framework of the Saudi Vision 2030 to develop academic education programs and encourage distance and e-learning education toward a digital transformation for a vibrant society, a thriving economy, and an ambitious nation. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you have any comments, I just want to add something. I like what Prof. Susan said about education in general. She said, we want to make differences to our policies and practices, which is great. I believe this is very important, and I hope my presentation will be benefit. I mean, those who are from Australia and from Indonesia, regarding the implementation of mobile learning in university level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Eman. It was a very useful presentation. And so Princess Eman presented about the use of mobile learning in the context of Saudi Arabia, particularly in the high education level. And it was interesting for me to know about the shortage of, or the lack of policy regarding the use of mobile phone. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we go to the third speaker, Pak Hamdan.
Okay.
All right.
Hello.
Yes.
Can I hear my voice?
Yes, but I can't see you. Okay. So before I invite Dr. Hamdan, I would like to read his profile. So Dr. Haji Hamdan, M.Pd. He is the Dean of the Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teacher Training at Antasari State Islamic University, Banjarmasin. And he received his bachelor in the Pendidikan Agama or Religious Studies, and also in his master's degree was related to education management in IKIP Malang, and his doctorate study was specialized in PI or Islamic education in 2017. And his expertise is in Islamic education curriculum development, but he's going to present about character education. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Pak Hamdan.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody in Indonesia, and good afternoon in Australia. Thank you to the moderators for the valuable time and opportunity. Thanks to the Chief of Community, Bapak Dr. Ahmad Muradi, the Honorable Speaker, Prof. Susan Ledger from Newcastle University, Australia. Welcome and join this Zoom meeting webinar. The Honorable Speaker, Mrs. Eman Alshehri from Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University, Saudi Arabia. Welcome to this virtual train. Yeah. I would like to apologize that this is the first webinar, international webinar for me. Yeah. So I still what we call this. So I'm pleased and honored today as a speaker surrounded by great people like Mrs. Eman Alshehri and Prof. Susan Ledger on this international webinar. I'd like to apologize that the topic I present on this occasion might be uninteresting. However, I believe that this topic is still relevant and crucial to the situation we are facing today. Mrs. Eman talk about the mobile learning, and Susan Ledger talk about the education between Indonesia and Australia. Yeah, I think Mrs. Susan, Prof. Susan, know about Indonesia. Yeah. Okay, I'd like to share screen. Yeah. Okay. That's it. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, the title of my interest that I will present today is the urgency of character education and the post-pandemic COVID-19 or post-COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia, particularly in South Kalimantan. This is what I choose because character is very important in our religion. And now we are in Maulid month, Maulid Rasulullah month. So the purpose sending the Prophet Muhammad to the world is to recover character. Okay, we talk about the Indonesia. Geographically, Indonesia is archipelagic country.
Mohon maaf Pak.
Sorry?
Mungkin bisa diperbesar
Okay, sorry.
slide-nya.
Okay. Yeah, introduction. We talk about Indonesia first. Geographically, Indonesia is a archipelagic country with more than 70,000 islands. The population is very diverse, consisting more than 370 ethnic groups and more than 700 regional languages and rich ethnic cultural. This makes Indonesia a beautiful country on the one hand, but on the other hand, difficult managing and connecting. Of course, managing a large country like Indonesia is a simple matter. It's not more equal distribution of access to education for all Indonesian people. In addition, the development of human resources and infrastructure between one island and another are very significant differences and gaps. This has an impact on equality of education from one region to another. Meanwhile, the demand of curriculum or national education standard apply in all regions in Indonesia. Besides that, Indonesia is known a friendly and polite nation society. For example, they welcome and treat the guests nicely, care for the other people, and have high tolerance and respect regardless skin color, religion, ethnicity, and language. This example is our influence by the culture and the character of Indonesian nation, which is based on noble, valuable Indonesia, religion, and the original culture of Indonesia. This is does not happen by itself, but has taken root into the culture and character of Indonesian nation, which based on the value of Indonesian noble religion and culture. These characters and culture are preserved through education. Therefore, education is very strategic means in maintaining and shaping the national noble cultural character. However, at the beginning of 2020, Indonesia was hit by the COVID-19 outbreak, which made the learning system completely change from face-to-face in class to online learning, even though not all regions in Indonesia have the network access. So this is the obstacles, education and Indonesia, about the online learning. The first is internet access. Internet quarter fee to produce good quality learning. Fast and trace access and is needed because some applications require internet access speed. For example, like Zoom application. This application will run smoothly if the internet access is stable. The change to the whole system has not been accompanied by this kind of the technical readiness. Relying on mobile data, of course, the teacher student will think twice if they are learning meeting every day. You can imagine how much quota is needed in a week. The second obstacle, some children do not have mobile phones or computers like laptop and the others devices. They are forced to wait for their parent to come back from work because he only has his father, the only cell phone the family has. There is a cell phone with the several people to work on a float school assignment. The third obstacle, teacher and student are not familiar with online application tools and confessional learning. Teachers are free to express and dialogue with their student, even with spontaneous question and answers. Then, and the brief system of opposite happen. The teacher is stuck on operating the function and application menu. So do not be surprised if the relationship between teacher and student seems still and uncomfortable. The fourth obstacle In terms of student problem, the current generation, especially in urban area, most children on the smartphone and however, most students used to apply online rather than learning or studying. A bit of gadget is not the less that they use for online game or our activity in cyberspace, such as YouTube and Instagram. Of course, habits that are deeply rooted make the millennial generation difficult to change as smartphones are used for learning activities. As a result, when the learning there to be less than optimal or even as absorptive of obligation. And then number five, an adequate parental supervision. The rapid changes and learning models that are not accompanied mature readiness, the possibility of culture shock occurs. Carl Obeck, an anthropologist from Canada, said that if we interact with different habits, it is possible that our direction goal will change. In addition, we will feel like we don't know what have to do or how to do everything in your habit. The other problem in learning online, the curriculum used to face curriculum forced to be implemented online. This is a handicap for student and teacher, how to achieve the goal. And the second, students are lazy to study, which lead to school homework by someone. This is happened in South Kalimantan when I conducted research. Some students, at home, they are lying when they use the mobile phone, when the learning processing. And then with the teacher give him homework, give them homework, they're lazy to do and let the mature people to done for them. And the third problem, violence against children at home is rising due to online learning. This is related to the second problem because some children are lazy, some parents, they force their children to learning by violence, by something to force them to learning. But it is not good for our education. The fourth, online learning objective focus on the target curriculum material than the character of education. This is one of Mrs. Eman said, one disadvantage of using mobile is increasing student isolation. So some schools, maybe most schools, when the COVID hit Indonesia, particularly in South Kalimantan, the school focus on the target curriculum material than the character, because this is demand of the standard of national standard of education, for all Indonesian. Okay. The implementation of pandemic, okay, this is how to recover, about the problems, The local government policy as a different region in Indonesia could conduct half one online and offline classes. Yeah, this is happened when the COVID-19 pandemic run down or decrease. Yeah, this is a policy for some local government. Yeah, in Indonesia. Yeah, 50% online and 50% offline. Yeah. Okay. However, online class should be carry out health protocol and social distinction. And the second implementation, teaching and learning process with madrasah and learning or other online learning sources, both during pandemic and post-pandemic, need to be implemented and carried out at the beginning of each semester. As I know that COVID is not only a challenge, but also opportunity for us. Yeah, how to use mobile learning to be wise. Yeah, to be get a more benefit, yeah, for the educational goal. And the third, teacher must be advanced and operating online learning resources and just the modern teaching and learning change. This is very important for the teacher. Yeah? How to advance operating online, and then also how to what we call master of this material, and then also how to develop, how to build character, yeah, and their school. The control and guidance of supervisors and supervisors as implemented technology-based learning need to be carried out more massively to create new work culture as that is in accordance with the needs of the time. This is implemented, yeah, what they call post-pandemic, yeah. And then the character of character building in education, yeah, the challenge, yeah, how to get the children be honest as responsible, because on the pandemic, as long as pandemic, yeah, the learning, online learning, some students, their homework did by other person. Yeah. This is how to be honest, responsible to their homework. And the second, restore the nature of diligent study. We know after COVID-19, some students lazy to study. This is how to restore the nature of diligent study. The third, yeah, restore self-confidence and independently do school homework. Yeah, this is related to the be honest, responsible, to be diligent, I think. Yeah. Enforce discipline and all things, because some students, maybe in my research, yeah, students after pandemic COVID-19, yeah, this is still come to school late, yeah, or obey the homework, yeah. So this is a very important to the character building, enforce discipline for all things. Respect for others and care for others. This is according to our culture, yeah, in Indonesian culture, yeah. Respect for others. I think this is a universal culture, yeah. Respect for others and care for others. Sympathize with the suffering the other. This is very important to be give the one day program for building of the character. Willing to give help to this need. This is people like now, yeah. must be willing to give help to this in need. Yeah. The last one, device using smartphone and be polite using social media. Because now in Indonesia, people using smartphone, not for improve capability or competencies, but media for something fun, update status, and so on. I think the conclusion, how to solve this problem, to build or to make a good character for the children. Yeah. The first is teacher always give advice anytime and anywhere. This is a duty of the teacher. The teacher is a good role model. In Indonesia, I think the main teacher, guru, as the wajib ditiru dan wajib digugu. This is for example. There are school regulation are a result of mutual agreement. This is very important. Yeah, how to make a regulation, school regulation of mutual agreement. There are reward and punishment as well as education sanction. Must be what we call course, and school, about the reward and punishment. I think the number 5 is very important, involving parents of student and character building in terms of supervision. Like we have a book, for student. This is if there are tasks or homework for student, it put in this book, and then give assigned by his parent or her parents. And then the 6, there are a lesson book between school, what I said, and the parent of student. I think this is my presentation today. As I thought before, maybe this is a complement of speaker in this webinar. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Haji Hamdan, for the useful presentation. And it's actually really relevant to the previous presentation, especially about the character building or character education is very important as part of the education. Now we come to the question and answer session. I can see some questions here. Okay, so in the chat box, the question is addressed to Professor Susan Ledger. Professor Susan, are you still with us? Yeah, I think I believe that she needs to get her charger, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so the second question is addressed to Mrs. Eman. So the question is related to your tips and tricks of using mobile or online learning, because of the pandemic, of the use of online learning is an alternative, and but the problem is the lack of preparedness. So is there any tips and tricks how to use that?
Well, to be honest, thank you for the question, first of all. but to be honest, in Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University, using smartphones have not been implemented officially. But through the findings of my research, it seems that academics and students and academic and students are using it most often, more than other mobile technologies such as tablets or laptops. When I was investigating the policies issues, many of them of the academics mentioned that there are policies, but they are not, how can I say, they most of them don't have knowledge about it. So there is a lack of awareness about the policies of how to use mobile technologies correctly inside the class with their students. And through the research, I have found there is policies, but I think they are old policies and they don't fit with the new technologies. And for example, bring your own device policy is not implemented there. And we need to, I think academics and students need to understand all the regulations and policies to use these devices correctly. The tips, I mean, for the, I'm gonna speak from the evidence that I found in my research study. Like I saw so many academics using applications on their smart devices, such as Kahoot and Slido. These are the most common applications that they use at the beginning of the lessons to encourage a student to get engaged in the topic they are speaking about by asking quick questions about the topic. And believe me, students love this kind of learning activities because they use their own devices and they feel competitive with other students in the same class to participate in these kind of activities. And also the academic or the instructor benefit from these applications to get the information quickly and easily and understand what is the level of the understanding of their of his or her students after implementing these quizzes. Another way is also an interesting thing that I find is that I found in my research is there was an instructor from the engineering school who used to start the lessons in the it was according to the lesson, it was something about drawing 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional illustrations in the engineering school, and he used to ask his student to download AutoCAD application on their mobile devices to start basic work on drawing on 2-dimension and 3-dimension work. And then afterward, they cannot complete this work on the mobile devices because it need a bigger screen and a greater processor system. So they do it on their laptop in the advanced lessons. But this was one of the ways to interact the students and get them use the AutoCAD application on their mobile phones, which was interesting for me because, drawings and 2-dimensional drawings and 3-dimensional drawings on smartphones, it's not easy. but it was one good way to engage his students.
Okay, thank you. So you are suggesting to use, you are suggesting to have, for the students to have awareness of the policies, and also the use of Kahoot and other apps such as Kahoot and Slido. Does Mrs. Eman ask your question? I think that question was asked by Sri Nur Mulyati from in Palangkaraya. So yeah, thank you very much. And okay, this, I think I have, all right. So there is another question addressed to Pak Hamdan. So from Alvini Aisyah Putri, so she asked about the solution, how to face the students who are lazy in joining online learning, and how to improve their assignments, if it's online.
Okay, thank you, Alvini Aisyah Putri. The question, how the solution face to the lazy student, when they are joining the online learning. Give more assignment? Of course not. And school there has a program like home visit, on COVID-19 pandemic. As long as I know that teacher, they give assignment, but the student didn't do the assignment, and then they didn't submit the assignment, and many times, they don't submit the assignment from his teacher, the school has a program like home visit, before a home visit, they call his or her parent, why the student don't do his homework, after his know, but their parent or his parent can help, so the teacher must be go to their home to know, and give advice, and then to what we call to give him realize, that if they didn't do their homework, there's no score, and this become they lose her class in next year. This is very important, every school has number of their parents, student parent, and then address of parent. So from this, school can visit their home, to solve this problem. Thank you.
Yeah, homework is always a big problem, Hamdan. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to race off. I've hot linked my phone because I can't get internet, and the power just went whoop, which is why, technology is unreliable. Homework. If you go to that website, Evidence for Learning, they'll talk about the homework piece. And many times, if you don't do what you're doing, Hamdan, is actually working with the families. A lot of our students don't have computers. They don't have the ability to do homework. So the homework has actually been stopped in a lot of schools in Australia because it's inequitable. So schools in Australia, schoolwork has to be done sort of eliminates the inequities. So.
Yeah, thank you. So I can get also the importance of the role of parents as well. Yeah, regarding this. Yeah, there is a question addressed to Professor Susan.
Yes, where is that?
So it's actually in Indonesian. I will translate. So it's about okay. So it's about the curriculum in education. So as you know that curriculum, the curriculum development is according to the needs of the students. But she asked about local wisdom, how to add that in the curriculum. If I'm not mistaken, is that correct, Sri?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I think the curriculum at the moment is too full. Both in every country, the curriculum is far too full, and we expect our students to go through all that curriculum in grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. And you think, oh, I can't do anything extra. But I think what you have to do is actually look at what you can teach from the curriculum in the local context. I think that will make it and bring it alive and really connect our students to the curriculum. At the moment, curriculum is here, community is here, and they rarely meet. Curriculum in this school looks the same as another school 100 years. I mean, the basic curriculum is there, but you can achieve the curriculum by embedding it in local contexts and local histories, etc. That PBE that I talked about, and the PBL stuff. The stronger you can get that connection, the better for the students and, you know, for the curriculum. Better curriculum outcomes. But it's like inclusive practices. If you're into inclusive or special ed, you don't add it on top. You actually build the local knowledge and the local piece into the curriculum, not on top of the curriculum.
Okay, thank you. I can see Ibu Andi. She raised her hand. Please, Bu Andi, if you like to ask a question.
Thank you, Ibu. Actually, my question has been answered a little, but there are still some that from the Professor Susan's explanation just now that it's referred to the curriculum, that when we design curriculum, we have to think of the local knowledge and the local context. But there is another question of mine. It is about maybe that is referred to all the speakers today, because it's talk about the using of technology in teaching. As as Prof. Susan said that the domain of education is from cognitive, affective, and psychomotor, where children or students are need to be able to survive. Yeah, if I can take conclusion, is that how to survive and how to discern and how to care about life. That's what I can understand from that. And then one important thing that Prof. Susan explained just now to answer the other questions is about the curriculum. The curriculum should be, but there are still many complicated problems happen during the last 3 years, especially when we beginning to use technology in teaching. For example, like Mr. Hamdan said, that generally the students use the technology not to learn many things, but to use that to update status and play game and etc. And to my experience in teaching English this semester, the last 5 semesters, and when I ask the students to have discussion in the classroom, they really depend on the internet about I mean, when their friends ask question, they really depend on the internet to answer the question. But before that, I have asked them to prepare their paper, and then it takes much time. And then when I try to ask them another question that is not referred to their friends, they cannot answer it at all. That's a big problem about the technology, because it seems to me that students, so this is, I talk about my university students, because this is very risk, because they are in university students, but they have like that. So it's referred to the character. So what are the solutions to imitate this challenge? It's because I think not only in university, but from the kindergarten to senior high school, junior high school, elementary school, the character building cannot be achieved through this system, this educational system nowadays. That's my my point, and so that's my question. So what are the solutions to mitigate these challenges, especially referred to the one of the domain of education is about affective. That's referred to the character building. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
That's a great question and fantastic English. Can I just say I'm so impressed with everyone's English. Hamdan, yourself, you know, everyone's and Lydia, everyone's amazing. I wish my Indonesian was equally as good. Look, I think one of the best things that you can do with any people, no matter what tool it is to get students to teach someone else about it. Because what we use at the moment, all of our students, as you said, can use technology, but they consume it. They're consumers. But we want them to actually be creators of it. And one of the easiest ways is for them to actually explain how to use the technology for someone else. That simple little task can help. It just makes more sense if you get the older students to teach the younger students, or you get them to teach. You can say to all of your students in your classroom, what are you an expert on the internet, or what are you expert on your, you know, whatever it might be, and then get them to teach someone what they're an expert on. And then they understand that their knowledge, what they know about something they can teach, and it's giving them a different, it's that affective sort of stuff, but it's also just different. It's a different approach. It's using their knowledges and saying, look, you've got some great skills, teach someone else about it. And then that's a really good for the English language, because they have to use the language explanation types if you're looking at different text types. So that's a really useful tool. I think that's important. Hi, Rach.
Hi, just agreeing and loving that comment there. I think you're right. The strength-based approach, what do the students bring in terms of what they can do, and how can that be operationalized through technology? Yeah.
Thank you. So Dr. Rachel Berg is actually my supervisor. Thank you for coming.
Wonderful to be invited, and it's a wonderful symposium. It's so well put together, and these key themes are just so important that, you know, that we're all facing, I guess, in them together. It's great to share knowledge, share ideas. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. From Mrs. Eman, do you have any response related to Ms. Andy's question?
Yes, I would like to mention that I think sometimes if this awareness and knowledge comes from the leaders in the institution, in the school, in the university, I think this will force students to use the technology in the right way. So I think many of the students don't know how to use their mobile technologies for learning, especially the smartphones, because they are used to use it for entertaining. So I think that the possible way to solve this issue is through making more workshops and training on using specific apps that are good for learning activities, that are good for completing homework, and a variety of these applications would be great.
Eman, have you got, Eman, I know in your study, have you used the pedagogy wheel that actually has all of the different?
Yeah, I went through it, but I didn't use it in my study. I have implemented the TAM model, which is the technology acceptance model. And I have gone through 9 variables, examined these variables and how students and academics perceptions about these variables. Moving from social support, which is the main negative factor that many of the students and academic have mentioned regarding the policies in the University of Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal. There is policies, but they are old and they cannot be used anymore. So I think they need to upgrade it. They need to include new devices in these policies, and they need to increase the awareness and knowledge about using these new technologies in education.
I really like the pedagogical wheel, and your choice for your study is perfect, but the pedagogical wheel is something that's been emerging over the last 15 or so years. We're up to version 5 of this, and it helps people put it in. If you look at the SAMR model, the substitution, the augmentation, the modification, the redefinition, it helps teachers understand how they can use different technologies for different bits in their classroom. All these, and this wheel just gets bigger and bigger as technology gets, as technology improves. So for those that haven't had a look at this, it's definitely worth having a look at.
Yep. Thank you for sharing this. It's great.
Yeah, there's some codes there, and that's the pedagogical wheel comes out of it. This Australian guy's been so committed to Alan's for a long time. So yeah, nearly on 8 years or 10. So it's developing, but it's really useful so that if you want to use a particular technology tool, then you can see how, for what purposes that you can do it. So we're not just using it or consuming it, we're actually getting students to use it to create stuff. It's all about that creation of language or creation of task or project base, etc. So sorry, I will take that off. Sorry for jumping in with that share.
No, that's great. I'm finished, by the way. So thank you for the question. And I think it's from the university level, or the leaders in the university, the leaders in the institutions, in the schools. I think they need to give more awareness, knowledge, and increase the skills of the students about using technology in education.
Right.
Okay. So excuse me, Prof. Susan Ledgers. What was the website again? Is it designing outcome?
Sorry.
So we can designing outcomes, the benefits of it, so we can check the.
I'm just trying to see what the website is. Designingoutcomes.com.
Yeah.
And that's work from Alan. But if you just type in pedagogy wheel, it will come up. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Look, this is
yes.
Matt, American living in Indonesia. He's using a tech leader. So, there's so much stuff out there, and the more we can share with each other, it's really good. But yeah, this is version 5 of the pedagogy wheel. Okay. And each of these, if you just go to the website, you can scan them. There's Alan down here, Carrington, who is the designer from Adelaide. Okay. So have you got that web link? Oh, actually, what I'll do is just cut and paste it into the copy, and I'll put it in the chat. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bapak Dr. Hamdan, any response to Ibu Andi's question?
Okay. I have an opinion about how to use the mobile phone for the learning, yeah, and my experience in our university in UIN, yeah, Antasari Banjarmasin, yeah. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, yeah, we are shocked, yeah, about the changing from the face-to-face learning to the online, yeah. So the teacher must be used application online system for the learning, yeah. This is a lack of knowledge about how to use digital application for learning, yeah. They use WhatsApp, yeah. WhatsApp this is for communication, but they use for learning, yeah. Like group WhatsApp, yeah, they send the material and they send homework. Just only for communication, you know. So I think university or school has application that very useful, yeah, for learning online system. Yeah, I think this is my answer for the Andi Arlenas. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we have another question here. The question is for Mrs. Eman from Ibu Afifah Lindasari from UIN Antasari Banjarmasin. And the question is, yeah, I can read the question because it's English, regarding with the findings of your research about the practices of the mobile learning in Imam Abdurrahman University. Would you please to share what are the institutional solutions or perhaps the institutional programs to enhance the ability of older generation in using any kind of applications that you have mentioned earlier for teaching and learning process? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I mean, in Saudi Arabia, there is a strong move toward integrating education, technology in education in many ways, starting from the 2030 vision, which has a strong support for this idea and this dimension. And even one of the plans of this vision is to increase education in universities in different ways and make three university at least from Saudi Arabia on the top ranked university around the world. Which is making many universities in Saudi Arabia working hard to improve the education system and trying to work on increasing the number of workshops, increasing the number of training for their academics in the universities. And I can see it in Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University lately. Like, I'm surprised by the number of workshops and training sessions they send through email, and I'm surprised because they are great topics and it's never been mentioned before. So I think they have this new plan, a strategic plan to improve the education system in Saudi Arabia and in each university, and it's in the way. That the results are promising, and I think there is a huge move, and the country, the number of penetration of smartphones, the number of, like, for example, the 5G covers 78% of the country, of the population in the country, which is great. And there is a culture, a digital community that are moving toward using technology in every sector. So the digital transformation in the country is moving very fast, which is benefiting every dimension, and especially the education sector.
And certainly COVID improved that, sped that process up, Eman, didn't it?
Of course, yes. This is a strong reason for I mean, the digital transformation around the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions? So I can see here. Well, I do have a question myself. So, as Mrs. Eman said that the actually lots of workshops and trainings, maybe it's that for teachers or maybe for students. If it's the workshop, lots of workshop and trainings, but the problem is, especially if the problem is for if the teachers are teaching in remote area, or you can say I mean in maybe in villages, so maybe they gain that knowledge from the workshop and trainings, but the problem is they don't implement. Yeah, so so what are the causes of such problem, Prof. Susan? Or
I think one of the biggest problems is access. Actually, many of our rural and remote communities actually do not have internet access. So many of our smaller communities now are linking onto Elon Musk's Starlink. It's a satellite that can go to more of our rural and remote places. I think we'll see some major movement in that space. I'm not sure if Indonesia is already linked onto some Starlink, Elon Musk's new internet sort of stuff, internet approach to it. So I think we can teach our teachers a whole range of things, but if they don't have access to technology, it's a waste of time. So government has to actually make policies that gets that access out to those places. That has to be a priority. Now, I find it really funny. The rural and remote schools have been putting up with a lot of, they've had teacher shortages for a long, long time. But now that we've got teacher shortages in the metro centres and urban centres, now it's a problem. But it's always been a problem in rural and remote areas, and no one's attended to it. So I'm hoping that now, you know, if all of our city areas didn't have access to internet, then that would be a problem. And they don't think about others. And that's why we have to actually start caring and start thinking about others. Those three things. Learn to care. Care for those ones that don't have the internet. And let's make sure that they do get it.
Yes, I can add something to this. I agree with what Susan, Prof. Susan said. I think one of the things that Saudi Arabia tried to overcome during the COVID, especially in the rural areas, I'm speaking in for regarding the school education. They have used the satellite to send to present channels that present education for class students around Saudi Arabia that don't have access to internet. But still, there is a problem.
That is such a fantastic idea. I proposed that probably about 5 years ago with our Australian Broadcast Commission, that if our internet systems are so wonky, that maybe let's just get our TV programs, good educational TV programs, out to those areas. So every morning from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, we have really good TV about science, about maths, you know, some really good high TV. That way we know everyone is in the country is watching that show at that particular time.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool thing. It's what China used to do with putting their newspapers up in every town. You know, this is about getting TV, good quality TV programs to help teach those rural and remote areas until those rural and remote areas get access to the internet.
Yep, I think it was a great solution for them, and for moving schools online. They have opened a platform called Madrasati. This platform where students, school students and their teachers meet virtually every day for the years from year 1 to 3 from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and for the higher levels from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. So I think it was a great solution during the pandemic. However, still the rural areas suffer from a lack of access to the internet. And I hope this will find solution soon.
That's great.
Yeah, that's great idea, Mrs. Eman. Is there any other question from the participants? Okay. Yes.
Give it.
Please.
About the internet access, about the internet access in Indonesia is a big problem, because Indonesia is the bigger and the wide, large country, and this, as I told before, that Indonesia has more than 70,000 islands, big and small. So the internet access is very weak, and then particularly in remote area like in Maluku and Central Kalimantan, and other island, small island. Government has a policy to give the program of education like TVRI, they have a program of education. TV, I think we can menjangkau,
To reach.
reach for the remote area, TV. So TV program like education can use for learning, and remote area. This is one of solution, to lack of internet access, in Indonesia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So it seems that there are no other questions. So by this, we go to the next session. It's actually only the presentation of the token of appreciations to the presenters. First of all, we have Professor Susan Ledger. Committee, can you please the certificate of appreciation? Yes. Okay. So thank you very much for it was really wonderful to have you in our international webinar. So this is presented to Professor Susan Ledger.
Terima kasih banyak. I want to thank my fellow speakers, Eman, and let me see if I pronounced it correctly. The Dean of Education from there. Where is he?
Hamdan.
Hamdan, but also who else was there chatting to me on the side? Anyhow, I just like terima kasih banyak, minta maaf sebab saya tidak bisa letak gambar di belakang. Maaf ya.
Oh, yeah.
So Ahmad Muradi, yes.
Before I go, Lydia, before I go, I just want to I want to reach out and say thank you to everyone who's involved here. For the academics at your university, if they want to reach out to our university, we would love to develop, a stronger partnership with you.
Yes, of course.
Lydia can certainly encourage you to apply to be postgrad students if you want to, but also, having our students there or your students with us or doing some swaps. We're very open to actually working with our closest neighbours, and particularly people who are connected to us via being PhD students, etc. So I want to give you, thank you for this opportunity, but also extend my hand out to you. We are teaching Indonesian language here, and we also have English language. So, we could, I'm sure there's opportunities to do something there. So lots of opportunities, and today has provided us lots of opportunities to get to know each other more. And I want to say thank you. And it's been an honor. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I will have to race, though. I've got
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having.
Terima kasih. Bye.
Yeah, so actually, I know Professor Susan's husband. So he's Mr. Richard. Mr. Richard is a lecturer of Bahasa Indonesia at the University of Newcastle, Australia. So yeah, it's really okay. The second presenter we have Mrs. Eman Alshehri. So please, the committee would like to present you the token of appreciation. Thank you
so much. I'm really honored to be one of the speakers in this vulnerable webinar. And I enjoyed this webinar speaking with these magnificent researchers, academics, and I believe that all of us learn from each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And the last but not least, Bapak Dr. Haji Hamdan. Thank you also for presenting in our international webinar.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. This is a good experience with the great speakers from Saudi Arabia, like Mrs. Eman Alshehri and Prof. Susan. Yeah, this is my best experience to we have international webinar. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much. It was really an honor for me as a moderator to moderate this international webinar. And I hand over for the closing to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for Ibu Haja Normal Lydia as the moderator of this session, and also all the speakers, Prof. Susan, Mrs. Eman, and also Bapak Hamdan for the very valuable information and also nice discussion related to the education in diverse contexts, practices, and challenges. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that will be all the agenda for today's webinar. The certificate of the participants will be sent through email that you have registered in link. See you next time. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much.
Apa kabar?
Iya, terima kasih Bu Maulidia dari Australia.